Hello everyone, it's Amy, and welcome back to Journaling on a Budget Starting Over. And so today we are going to use some of the doodled borders that we made last week that I showed you how to make. This is the one that we made on the video, and then I had just like divided up a couple of pieces of scrap paper with some lines, and then went away and doodled those over the last week. So, I think that was last week's. And so these are the ones that I did. I had some that I did in blues because that was kind of the background on that piece of scrap paper that I had, and some in oranges and purples. And on this piece of paper, I had stamped off a stamp that had these little shapes on it, and so I just doodled around them. I really liked it when I did the first one, so I did another one just like it, because I don't have to use them in the same book, and even if I do, you know, they're just coordinating, so it's okay to do that. This one I've already cut them apart, and so those are really nice borders there to use, and I do like to cut mine apart because then I can see what they look like. But you can just leave them together. Now this one I've already started to cut, but you could just leave this completely together and stick it in a file folder and then go through and cut one off when you need it. I like to cut them apart because to me I like to sample them on my book, and I like to just, I can't really see exactly what these borders are going to look like when they're all hooked together. That's just me. Some people have the ability to look at that and just say, I like that border, and know that that's what it's going to look like. To me, it just, you know, I can't separate that. So I did draw thick black lines between each one so that when I cut them apart, I could just cut kind of in the middle of that black line, and then I didn't have to, if I got some black on this side and some black on that side, that would bother me if I didn't go through and then make that whole edge black. So by making a thicker black line, when I cut it, I could just cut through the middle of the black line and I would have black on both sides. And if I had to touch it up here or there where I did, you know, get all the black on one side or the other, it would just be a little touch up versus trying to make a black line along that squiggly edge. So I just went ahead, I left those together so you could see what they look like when you separate them, and then what they look like if you think you might want to just keep them together. But I'm going to just finish cutting these apart. And today actually I think we're going to work with the blue ones, partly because they were already cut apart, so I could kind of like put them in my book and decide what it was that I wanted to do with those. And so, but now that they're cut apart, to me, they look so different once you get them cut apart. And, you know, like I said, that's just me. I really love this one now that it's cut apart. I didn't even really notice it much when it was together. And I think that one is just really, really pretty. So, so what can you do with them once you make the doodle borders? You don't have to just use them as a border, you know, per se, like on your page. And if I make them out of, these are all made out of copy paper. And if I make them out of copy paper, then I use them completely on a page or on a pocket. And I thought that this one that we had made would look nice on a pocket. I grabbed out just a piece of scrap paper, and I thought about doing a pocket on the front cover and a pocket on the back cover, but I'm not really wanting to do that because I think I want to do more with the cover, and I don't know what yet. So I'm going to put a pocket on the front page and on the last page because I think that that would be nice to have a pocket at the start and at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to decide I probably want this pocket to be about this long, and so I'm just going to cut that. Well, now I want to do the same color pocket at each end, and this piece of paper will not do two pockets, and I can't turn it this way because it's not long enough. So I think then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just straighten off this edge, and I'm going to cut it in half. That will make it a little shorter than what I originally said, but yeah, I think that that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to, because I have an uneven edge on here and I can see that, I'm going to just straighten that up. Just remember to hold your paper down so that it doesn't slip while you're cutting. And this is 4 3/4, so I'm going to need 2 1/4 and 1/8. So there's 2, 2 1/4, and then half of another quarter. Making sure, looking here as you go to make sure that you have your paper straight. And there we go. Now both of our pockets are about the same, which they don't have to be the same. And then I need to measure how wide is my paper on my book. And so the paper is just over 5 1/4 inches. So I'm going to cut my pockets at 5 1/4. Just going to put them together. Open this up. That's 5 inches. And this stops at 5 inches. Well, it stops at 4 3/4 really, but I put a mark for 5. But I'm going to just kind of guesstimate where 5 1/4 would be. And cut that there. Now we've got a couple of pieces we could use for, we could use those for tags. So now we've got our papers, and I want to put this across the top of each of the pockets like this. Like I said, because it's copy paper, I like to put it directly onto something. I don't like to let it stick like off the edge of a page. Because it's just copy paper and it's very flimsy. Now, if this was on cardstock, I would, by all means, I would put it on the edge of a page. And if I wanted to put this on the edge of a page and I didn't feel it was thick enough, I would just glue it to either another piece of paper, or usually I would glue it to a piece of cardstock. Then it would be solid enough to hang over the edge of my page and not get tattered so quickly. There's nothing wrong with tattered. It looks kind of nice. So I am just going to take this one, and I did kind of hold it up to the book and make sure that it was going to fit across 2 pockets, and yes, it will. Alrighty, so I'm just going to put some glue on the back of this one and glue it right to the top of my pocket. If I can get the top off my glue. There we go. Alrighty, I'm going to move these out of the way. And I'm going to cut it in half first. It might be a little bit long and then I'll trim it off, but I'll cut it in half so that I'm only gluing one part of it, so the glue doesn't dry on the other part. There we go. And I'm going to come down here and put my glue, because I didn't bring a glue book or a magazine. I normally use a magazine as something to glue in, because you can just keep turning the pages, but I forgot to grab one, so I have used stick glue on the back of this, and I'm just going to line it up at the top. I could even leave a little, I think I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. There we go. I left just a little bit of the pocket at the top, and then I can distress around the edges and with a color. And I have already sampled. I wanted to see what the broken china distress ink would look like on this color paper, because when you're using different color papers, you have to remember, test it somewhere where you're not going to see it. I just tested it on the back, so that you know that it's going to look the way that you want it to look. And then we can just take some of that and we can distress the edges. And I think I'm going to kind of bring the distressing in a little bit. I just did along the edge, but I want to get it a little bit on that tan that's still sticking up there. So I'm just going to go back and do it again. There. Now we've got a little bit of the tan and a little bit of the color all the way across there. And that looks really cute, but this is very plain. So what are we going to do about that? Well, let's stencil it. And if you don't have a stencil, you just make your own. So I just kind of want a long strip stencil. And so I am just going to cut, might as well just use my cutter. I'm going to cut a strip of paper, and I'm going to make a stencil. Okay, that will definitely be big enough. Kind of put the top back on there. Okay, and to make a stencil, it's just like when you were young and you used to do the snowflakes, when you'd cut out the snowflakes. So we're just going to fold this up. I'm going to fold it. I folded it in half, and I'm going to fold it in half the other way. The only thing that you want to remember is you're going to cut on the folds, and don't cut a fold off completely. Like there is a fold here because we folded it in half. I want to make sure that I don't cut some kind of a design that's going to cut all the way across there. The whole thing's going to come apart. We can still cut on that fold. And then, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut on this little middle fold, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to maybe cut off a corner and then just kind of cut up into my stencil. There is no right or wrong. There's no right designs or wrong designs. You just make some marks. And then when you unfold it, there's your big reveal. Now we had folded it across here, so I'm going to come back down on there, not cutting it off at the corner, and trying to fill in some of this big space. You don't want to just stay right along the fold. You want to make sure you don't cut it off completely, but you want to make sure that you get some stuff up into this blank area, or otherwise that blank area will just, you won't be able to stencil through it. There won't be a hole there. So now see, my fold is here, so I'm going to leave some of the fold and come in and make some other kind of a design. Leave some fold. And because it's so thick, I normally kind of come in and cut one side and then come back up and cut the other side. Can't get that point out of there. Okay. Some people will cut up and then just turn their paper and then cut back down. I just have a hard time doing it that way, so I don't. Maybe do a couple of those at a couple of different heights. I kind of like that shape. There. And then so you just keep on cutting until you get to the end. Now, I don't need it to be this long. When I open this up, it's going to be the full length. But since I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and just continue till I'm done. Then I can use it on a bigger piece of paper if I need to. Like maybe I'll want to put it on a page. Then I'll want it to be as long as the page. And then maybe I will kind of round these edges in case I go over the edges. And come in, and again, now these are not folded. These are our unfolded edges. These are our straight edges, but I'm going to put a little something there too in case I want to stencil over the whole thing. You can stay in the middle of your stencil, and then, you know, you'll just have that stenciled area, but if you go over the edges, I just don't want a straight edge. I'm just going to do that along the edge. And again, that was not our folded edge. If I had done that on the folded edge, the whole thing would fall apart. Now, because we didn't cut our folds, we're going to unfold it. And it's going to stay together. And that is the look that we have. And then we're going to unfold it again. And this is what our stencil looks like. And that looks pretty cool. Let's see. Put it on the page. So that looks really cool. And then after you've used it as a stencil, this is plain old copy paper, so it's not going to hold up forever, but it doesn't have to. But after you've used it to stencil, you also could put a piece of colored paper behind it, glue them together, and use it as a belly band. Just thought of that while I was holding it up there so you could see what it looks like. So yeah, there's so many different things that you can even do with it once you get it done. So I'm going to kind of center it. I'm going to decide how far up. Now, there are gaps, you know, like there are areas here that are just very plain. If you want to get something in there, you can just fold your paper like this, and then like maybe cut a little circle in there or something, and then you would, you know, cut a half a circle on your fold, and then you would have a circle right there. I don't think I want any more than what I have, so I'm going to leave it. But if you wind up with big gaps that are all paper, you know no color is going to go through there, and you want there to be color in that area, just fold it there and cut any kind of a design, and then you'll have a design right there. So I am going to center this, deciding how high I want to center it. Maybe like right about there, and the arrows, these kind of make arrows when you cut those shapes. Yeah, I like that. So then we're going to use the broken china and stencil it. Now when you stencil, especially when you're stenciling with paint, you want to make sure that you tap up and down, straight up and down, no rubbing, because rubbing does two things. With this thin of a stencil, it's going to bend your stencil. But even with a heavier stencil, it may move your stencil. And if you're using paint or anything that is liquidy, it will want to go under the stencil if you rub back and forth, or even like round and around if you've got quite a bit of paint on what you're using. And when you're stenciling, if you're using paint, you should use little amounts. And, you know, dab them on there with a brush or with a sponge or however you want to. And then if it's not as dark as you want it, just go back over it again and dab it again. So, because if you get too much paint on your brush or your sponge or whatever you're putting it on with, that will also want to seep under your stencil and make uneven edges. And when you use sprays, they're going to go underneath your edges. If you hold it up higher, if you're spraying, that helps. But if it's a really wet, whatever you're spraying is really wet, which it's liquid, so it usually might be, it will probably get underneath unless you have a stencil that sticks down, that's removable. So let's see what this looks like now. And there we go. Now that's what our pocket looks like. Now we can doodle around that, maybe with that the copper marker that I had used on that one. You know, you can leave it just like it is. You can go in and move your stencil and use a different color. You know, you can do all sorts of things. I do want to, now that I'm done with that, I want to edge the whole thing. And for now, I like the way it looks. Later on, I might decide, I want to go use that marker to, you know, maybe put a little bit of that coppery gold color down on the bottom. But for now, I like the way that that looks. I might go ahead and maybe even take a black pen or even that copper pen and go along that border to separate it. So, and then that looks really cool, doesn't it? Okay, so this is going to be our pocket for the front. And we're just going to glue that in. I don't use double-sided tape for pockets because double-sided tape, if you put it on here and then you stick it down, it sticks really well. But when you stick something in there, that double-sided tape is still kind of sticky. So if your tag goes in and it pushes against the double-sided tape that's on the bottom of your pocket, it will want to stick to that double-sided tape. And that's why I don't use it. There's nothing wrong with it, and you can use it if you want to. But, you know, just a little tip is that it does tend to make your tags and stuff stick in your pocket a little bit. So I'm just going to go around the edges of this. Make sure that this is the bottom, and it is. I just want a nice thin bead of glue. I mean, we're only gluing down paper to paper. We don't need a whole ton of it. And I'm going to line it up with the outside edge of my page, so that it's not super close to the fold. And then I had some, here we go. Put a piece of paper in there so I'm not getting the glue on the other page. And then I'm going to push out. Wherever I had the glue, push out, push towards the outside. The glue's going to squish out the edges. But if you push in, then that glue is going to push into your pocket, and it's going to make your pocket smaller. So, and then just hold that down for a second because it's wet glue. You can use whatever type of glue you want. This was just the Eileen's Tacky Glue. You can use regular Elmer's glue. You know, there's different things for different glues for different purposes. Now I'm going to turn this over put this underneath of it. I'm going to push down on it from this side. What is it? The Fabri-Tac works really well for stuff like this because it works really fast, but it's not very cheap. So, you know, I mean, unless you're in some kind of a big hurry, this is going to dry. It's going to be just fine. And there we go. There's our pocket. So there's our pocket. That's our first border that we made, and we've got that in the book, and it really does give it a little bit of something there. And so then I want to do another one on the back, but I also want to, I want to use this one as a belly band. And so I'm going to just glue this to a piece of, this is just copy paper again. I'm going to glue it to the copy paper. I feel that will make it heavy enough with the two of them glued together. Or cardstock. I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock real quick. It won't take me but just a second, maybe. So this piece of cardstock I had to do my computer setup on. And so I just threw it in my scrap bin. It wasn't supposed to be cardstock, but I forgot I had cardstock in my copy machine at the time. So just get the glue on there. And line that up. Doesn't really matter if it's perfectly straight or anything. You can trim around the edges after it dries. And that is another reason I like to use stick glue for some things. I don't know how long stick glue is going to last. This is a permanent stick glue. So, you know, this is the one I use for my books. I don't usually use the Elmer's Kids stick glue for something like this. I do use it for glue books because it's a glue book. Doesn't need to last forever, and really, no matter what you're doing, does it really have to last forever. And then we're just cut this off and use it as a belly band. Now, I could have actually put this on like maybe a piece of blue cardstock and then left a little bit on this side and then cut it so that there was an edge on the other side. That would have made it wider and given it like a second layer. So you could do that. But I really, when I cut them apart, I fell in love with that one and thought that is definitely going to be a belly band in this book. And so I thought that I would put it on one of our blue pieces of paper. I don't think I want to put it on this one because we've already got this envelope here and that's kind of busy. So I really don't want it there because it's going in the middle. So it would look good there. Or what's on this side? Again, on this side, we've got that one. And this one's got a hole in the paper, which when you make your own homemade paper, that happens sometime. But we'll glue something over that. So I don't want to do my belly band here because I don't know that I'll be gluing anything there. So I am going to put it on this one. And belly bands are as simple as cutting a strip of something that's heavy enough to hold a tag or a booklet and then gluing it on at the top and the bottom. That's just how easy it is to put a belly band in. So I'm going to put it in the middle. Put a piece of paper underneath. Whoops. Let's try and make sure that it's straight. And just push it outwards to push that glue into good contact with the paper, but not squishing it up into my belly band. Of course, with a belly band, it's not that big of a deal because you have so much space to tuck things in there that it's not going to matter if that glue were to come one way or the other. And the belly band itself is a little wider at the top than the bottom. And that's because it's homemade, and that's totally fine. And then just go in. trim off that little bit that's sticking out. And trim off this one. And there we go. So now we have a belly band that we can make a book, or we can make a tag or something to go in there. And we've got our pocket, and we've got the other pocket that we're going to do, that I had better get this glued on before I lose it. And then I'll stencil that one too, so they match, but just because I want to. They don't have to match. And again, I'm just gluing off the side there. And I'm going to put it down just a little bit. There we go. And put a little bit of this on here. And then, while we're at it, get the stencil on there, and it will be ready to go. Now, the question is on this one, because my bump here is not in the middle. The other one, it was right in the middle, so I line that up right in the middle. So, do I line it up where that goes up into there, which is going to move my whole thing over, or do I bring it down a bit? And center it like the other one. We'll try bringing it down a bit. No, I think I'm going to bring it up. I want it up in that bump. So this one's going to have 3 arrows. This side's only going to have 1 arrow. Or the cutouts that kind of look like arrows. And because the belly band is in the same color tones, and it's a doodle belly band, so and it was just like scrap paper in the background with miscellaneous painting on it. If I get a little bit of this on there, it's not going to make any difference. And if it was some kind of a, where it really showed up and I didn't like the way it showed up, then you just cover it up with something. That's the biggest thing. Cover it up with a butterfly or a flower. That fixes everything. There we go. And there's the reveal on that one. So that sits a little bit more to one side. Now this would look really kind of pretty with something in the middle. I didn't notice that on the other one. On this one, I noticed, so I think maybe I'll cut a flower or something and put that on there. And what I'm going to do with this is, I'm going to continue stenciling down to the end of this one. And the other end too. I'm just trying to kind of make it as dark as, probably as dark as the middle. There, now that's really quite pretty, and I thought maybe I think I'm going to glue that to there and use it as a belly band for the back signature of our book. Now, I could just keep that as a stencil, put it in a folder somewhere, and keep it as a stencil to use later. But I just really kind of want to use it as a belly band. And I have a belly band in the first section, so why not use it for that? If you wind up with one that you absolutely love, I'm going to cut this one 2.5 inches wide. And that looks very, very crooked. Nope, it's not. 2.5 inches all the way down. If you make a stencil that you absolutely love, they're very hard to duplicate. You could fold it back up again, get another piece of paper, and try and copy it. But the chances of you making one that turns out the same is not very, it's not very easy. So if you have one that you really love, then you may want to set it aside and keep it so that you can use it again instead of using it like this. So, because you can kind of get the same designs. Like, I like this arrow design that I do, and, you know, that was just a matter of cutting some straight lines and putting an angle at the top, and that makes an arrow. But to make it in the same context of this stencil with the other parts of this stencil and even the distance and everything else, it would be hard to duplicate. So I know how to make the same shape sometimes. As a matter of fact, I knew I liked that shape when I made it, but I couldn't remember what it looked like until I opened it up and went, oh yeah, that's the one that looks like arrows. And be very careful with your copy paper so that you don't rip it. Whoops. I did rip a bit of it off right there. I'm just going to take this. Center it on there. Try and get off my fingers. Okay. There we go. Where's my... Just use the lid of my Distress ink to kind of give it a bit of a push down. Got a few places where the glue kind of globbed up and got under the stencil, so I want to get that off of there and there. There. And then you can leave that like that, or you can distress. I'm going to see how... Gonna need to trim off just a little bit, so I'm gonna do that before I distress it. I should have used the cutter. I'm no good at cutting things straight. And then we'll just distress the edges of this one. This might look nice if you would maybe round the corners. Which is one of the punches that I always recommend when you're out looking for punches. You don't need a ton. I'm going to tell you, I have a ton. But you forget what you even have, and you don't use them all that often. I wound up with lots of punches before I got the die cutting machines. And so I used them more then, although I think I kind of like the punches better because you just get it out, you punch it. You don't have to get out the machine. You don't have to find the die and get that out and make sure you don't lose it. I kind of like punches better. Okay, so there we go. Now we know we have a belly band in the front one, so let's put a belly band in the back. And, ooh, I kind of like it on that green one. How about the green with the red? What does the other side look like? I like it on the green and the red, although the red's a little distracting. Okay, I like it on the green and the red, but I don't like it next to this doily. So because I really haven't done much with this book yet, and it's not like I have 2 other pages on the other side that, you know, like 2 pages that's a spread, I can turn this page right around. Because we didn't sew it in, there we go. And now do I want it up here or do I want it back here? I think I want it closer to the front. I think I want it right there. And it's just going to, and see, there we go. That was cardstock that I thought I had wasted because I forgot to take it out of my copy machine. But it's not wasted. I can still use it. And actually, that design might look really cool in collage. Lid on my glue. Grab a piece of paper. Not that one, it's got glue all over it. That one. Push the glue to the outside. Push the glue to the outside. And this one's going to have to be trimmed off at the bottom. It does stick out just a little bit. Top looks good. And I'll just trim the bottom here a little bit. Yeah, and then just re-distress it. Now this one is pretty gluey on the top of the stencil, so I am going to put a piece of parchment in here while that dries so that it doesn't stick to the page in front of it. Oh, we didn't. Forgot to do the edges of this one. And the thing with distressing is don't worry about trying to make it all even or anything. Just put it on there. It's not supposed to look perfect. Alrighty, that's my top, so put a little glue here and here and there. Grab this piece of parchment. Line it up at this corner. Hopefully not too much of this was off screen today. I just do have the camera up a little bit higher than normal, or further away from me than normal. Just give that a good press to the outside. And there. And now we've got these leftover parts that we can use to make a tag. So I'm going to keep these because they'll make a good tag for that. But because my glue's wet, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to just take this piece of parchment. Well, it's not parchment, it's unwaxed paper, which I thought it was parchment, but it's not. So it is a little stickier than parchment. It's not as non-stick as parchment, but it works. Okay, so we have got our doodle borders to make a pocket for the back, to make a pocket for the front. Now there's more things that we'll have to do up here and up here, but for now, we're just going to let them be. And then, because we made the stencil, we used that to go ahead and make another belly band that we can use to hold a book. I like to put little books in my belly bands. So there's that. And then we have our belly band here that is also one of our borders. So those are some of the things you can do with your borders. So you can take your borders and put them on the page, on the inside of the page, facing in. Remember, if they're paper borders, you don't really want to have them hanging over the edge. But if they're cardstock borders, or you want to put a little cardstock on the back, then you can put them in to hang over the edge. That one looks really pretty on that piece of paper. And then it will stick out the edge of your book a little bit, depending on how big your cover is, or maybe, you know, not, just barely. So, but it doesn't have to, because when you open it up, there it is, and it's pretty. And I think I'm going to leave that one tucked in there because I think that I want to put that on that page when I get to that page. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and the different things, finding out the different things that you can do with all of your borders. I think they're just gorgeous. I love them, and I love making them. So again, the person I learned to make the doodle borders from was Betsy Doodle. Go check out her channel because she has a lot of really fun projects. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate you, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.